All right, so let's look at the standard deviation and mode. First, common misunderstandings of mode. The first common misunderstanding is that mode is the number of times that something occurs. So here the mode is 4, but some people might answer 3. It is always the actual data value that occurs the most. So if you look at a histogram, here some people might think it's 50. It's not 50. That's how many times the value occurs. And in this case, the value is a range of values. 250 to 300 is the most common, occurs the most. Now, common misunderstandings for standard deviation. Standard deviation is not a measure of the accuracy of the mean. It does not tell you if you have outliers. What standard deviation does tell you is how spread out the data is, the amount of variability, and where the majority of the data is located. So if we start by looking here, just at this little example, you can see that these two histograms actually have the exact same standard deviation. So that number 20 in itself does not tell me, yes, I have an outlier. We really need to look at the histogram or look at the data itself closely to see that. The 20 just tells you how spread out you are. So let's look at that. Now here we have two histograms, and it is very clear that this one has a smaller standard deviation because the data is much tighter. It's just within a couple values. Well, here it's much wider. Let's take a closer look at these two histograms. Now this one, the red one you can see has a mean of 30, a standard deviation of 8. That means that most of the data is 8 units above the mean or 8 units below, between 22 and 38. Now here, the blue one, just looking at it, you can say, oh my gosh, this is so spread out. It must have a bigger standard deviation. And certainly it does. It's 20. That means that most of the data is 20 units below 50 or 20 units above 50. That's most of the data is between 30 and 70, a much, much bigger spread. All right, so looking at numbers, can you just tell looking at those, which one has a bigger standard deviation? I can tell immediately that it would be the upper values, the ones in black. These ones, though they are actually smaller numbers, the range is from 1 to 2,000, and even the spread, look, between 700 and 1,000, that's 300 spread. This is a 400 spread. Now here, higher numbers, but the spread is actually just 200. The range is much smaller, and the jump between, the number of units between the values is also much smaller. So the top data set has a larger standard deviation than the bottom one. The other thing we can look at is just the variability. So if you look at these two orders of bacon, the top order, all the orders are within our 30 something. So there's not a lot of variability. And look at that, a nice small standard deviation. The lower orders, however, are all over the place, 22, 52, 10, tons of variability. And it has a high standard deviation. So even though the averages are incredibly similar, these standard deviations tell me that I can just tell if I didn't look at these numbers, just looking at these two things, I can say, okay, average is here, but the numbers are all over the place. They're 18 units above to 18 units below 32. And here, most of the values are just 2 units above this value and 2 units below. So in summary, standard deviation tells you the amount of variation and spread of the data, okay, with this beautiful equation. And the mode tells you the number or range of numbers that occurs the most often. Hope that is clear for everybody.